Good evening. The time is now 5:11 and the Warwick Finance Committee is in session. May I have a motion for acceptance of the minutes for the committee meeting held on September 18th?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. PCR 105-23, the bid docket. First item on is bid 2024-222, purchase a 2022 Ford Interceptor utility hybrid all-wheel drive. This is found on page 1. Good evening, Major.
Good evening, Major Andy Sullivan for the Police Department. The Police Department is seeking a 56-6 exception to bid for the purchase of one Ford Interceptor utility hybrid. The vehicle, priced at $54,819.35, would be purchased from McGovern Municipal HQ under the Greater Boston Police Council bid. This vehicle would be incorporated into our frontline fleet. If approved, the vehicle would be funded through ARPA capital outlay budget, code 510-0400.
Thank you, Major. Any questions, comments from members of this committee? Questions, comments from members of the council? Questions, comments from members of the public? Members of the public. Thank you, Major.
Thank you.
The next, we will go to all items that are under 50,000 or 50,000 and below. I will ask members of this committee, members of the council, and members of the public if there's any item that they would like to pull for discussion. I would like to begin. I will request bid 2024-210. That is found on page 14 of your docket. Are there any items that members of the committee would like to discuss? Councilman Foley.
2024-187.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Councilman Foley requests that 2024-187 is pulled. That's City Hall Plaza naming rights. That is pulled and discussed out of the bid package. Are there any other items from members of the committee? Are there any items from members of the council that would like to pull from the bid package? Are there any items that members of the public would like to pull from the bid package for discussion? Thank you. As always, we'll go in order. Bid 2024-210, UCMR 5 testing. Good evening, Director. Just please identify in the department.
Terry DiPetrello, Chief of Water. UCMR 5 testing is it falls under the Safe Drinking Water Act that requires the U.S. EPA to issue a list of potential contaminants to be added to the Safe Drinking Water Act. The U.S. EPA is including 29 per and polyfluoroalkyl substances in the 5th unrated contaminant monitoring. So to put that in layman's terms is that we test for certain chemicals every day. However, the EPA, we might be familiar with PFAS that you heard in the news, forever chemicals. So we just have to follow the EPA guidelines on this new testing. Originally, we had put in for $10,000 on our pink sheet, but the quote came in at $11,610. So we requested an additional $2,000 on top of that initial $10,000 requested to cover this testing.
Thank you, Director. City Clerk, may I have a PCR per request of the Director? This will now, bid 2024-210 will now be PCR 108-23. And we will open discussion of the bid as well as the director's request to increase the bid from $10,000 to $12,000, an increase of $2,000 on the original. Any questions from members of this committee? Questions, comments from members of the council? Councilman Ricks.
Thank you. Have we ever in the city had this testing for PFAS before?
No, PFAS is just, it's actually relatively new. Every so often, EPA comes, so the last time we did testing, there was UCMR 4, which, was other contaminants that we test for. So unregulated contaminants is something that every so often we have to test for just to make sure it's not in our water system. But with this new PFAS, it's 29 forever chemicals that are in water bottles, your microphone, that laptop, that leach into the ground, into our water system. We're a closed loop water system. We did our PFAS testing already, and fortunately, we have no PFAS in our system. But we get to follow the EPA's UCM Route 5 rule now. So,
Well, that's good to know that there aren't any in the system. Thank you.
you're welcome.
Thank you, Councilman. Are there any other questions, comments from members of this council? Council President McAllister.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I think that's important, and thank you for Councilman Ricks for bringing that up. These forever chemicals, it's a major concern, and we're going to see more of this.
Yes.
Like you said, everything that we're using, cell phones, all of that, all has these forever chemicals. So this is something that we're going to need to monitor going forward.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Any other comments, questions for members of the council? Comments, questions for members of the public? Comments, questions for members of the public? Thank you. Now, if I may have a motion for PCR 108-23 amended from $10,000 to $12,000.
Move favorable on the amendment.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. May I have a motion on PCR 108-23 as amended?
Move favorable action.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Next is bid 2024-187. This was requested by Councilman Foley. Councilman Foley.
Is there someone here from the administration to speak on this? I just want to give you an opportunity, Mr. Mayor, just to explain for the record how the bid went out and the 2 bids we got back and how well we did on this.
We sent a bid out several weeks ago, September 7th. I knew she'd have the answer. We put in the bid a $250,000 minimum bid. We sent it out to dozens of companies. Yes, she did. Well, when I said we advertised it the normal ways. We got 2 bids back, both more than $250,000, and Greenwood Credit Union came in at highest at $300,000. So that's the bid we're recommending the council accept.
And not to dig at Providence, but at the press conference, you mentioned that's slightly higher than Providence.
Yes,
received.
Providence. Last time they were out to bid, they got $275,000, and that's the capital city and a very successful, established center for better than 2 decades.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Are there any other questions, comments from members of this committee? Council President McAllister.
Thank you. Great job, Mayor. I know we were you were very hopeful when this went out. We got multiple bids. I think Greenwood Credit Union is a perfect fit for this. It's right down the street from where the rink is going to be. As the councilman that represents this area, I'm very excited about this. We see all the development around here with the new playground, the new basketball courts. Now we're going to have this big attraction, and we've talked about this before, that there's going to be a go-to place for not only residents of Warwick, but across the state, and we're going to be able to showcase the city of Warwick. So I'm very excited for Greenwood Credit Union. I spoke to a number of their We saw their board chair this morning. I saw their president earlier this afternoon, congratulated him as well. They're excited, and this is a great thing, and I can't wait till we break ground and get moving, so.
Yeah, I agree, Council President. Greenwood Credit Union, as well as the other bit of Dave's Market, those are two companies that are very vested in this community. They're part of the fabric. They've been around for decades. In a very quiet way, they support youth sports. They support nonprofits, charitable events. They just do so much for this community, and it's a great partnership. In addition to this, I mean, down the road, we're going to have lots of other sponsorship and advertising opportunities. So, you know, we're going to increase the revenue as we go, but this was the big one. And this bid, it actually takes effect when the skating rink is completed and starts operating, but we gave them that period of time, the year and a half for construction. It'll still be known as Greenwood. They'll be brought in for any groundbreaking ceremonies, and we'll just keep mentioning them at every opportunity. They're excited, we're excited. You did a great job, Francis. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Are there any other comments, questions from members of the council? Are there any comments, questions from members of the public? Comments, questions from members of the public? Thank you. May I have a motion on PCR 105-23?
Move favorable action.
Second.
I have a motion, I have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. We are now on to PCR 104-20. Oh, correction. May I have a motion for acceptance of the minutes for the meeting held on September 18th?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. We are now on to PCR 104-23, a resolution authorizing the cancellation of uncollectible taxes of deceased taxpayers. This is sponsored by Council President McAllister. Council President?
Yes, thank you very much. This is kind of to clear up our books here, and the tax assessor's office is here to explain it, and I docket it on behalf of the administration.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good evening. Could you please identify in the department?
Good evening, Kyla Jones, tax collector. I'm here tonight to request the cancellation of taxes in accordance with RIGL 447142, which states, when a person dies leaving no estate or removed from the state and owns no property or interest in the property within the state, and the tax collector or person acting in capacity of the tax collector certifies in writing to the body authorized by the provisions of the section to cancel taxes as to the facts of the case. I have supplied you with the list of cancellations. Our collection agency is Rossi Law. They're a vendor we use to assist in the collection of delinquent accounts when the taxpayer doesn't respond to the city's delinquency notices. They have completed their letter campaign and provided us a list of accounts deemed uncollectible. In order to identify the taxpayers, Rossi uses death certificates, credit reports, and online obituaries. We have identified 1,493 bills that qualify for this cancellation. These bills range from 2000 to 2001, totaling $268,985.46. Over 2/3 of that list is over 10 years old. There is no budgetary impact on writing off these uncollectible balances. What it does is it'll decrease the allowance for doubtful accounts on the balance sheet, which will provide us a more accurate estimate of the expected revenues for the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions, comments from members of this committee? Questions, comments from members of the council? I can't say. Councilman Ricks.
Thank you, and thank you for presenting this. First, it was a real pleasure to go through those nearly 400 pages of those names listed in order to run a conflicts check. So I can imagine how it can be a hassle for your office as well as the Office of Rossi Law to have a lot of bloat there, just looking down and seeing those same names, knowing that it's really not collectible. For my review of it, it seemed pretty straightforward. But I guess a couple of questions just for the record, so that for the public's knowledge. I noticed that, as you said, 2/3 of these were at least 10 years old over this period of just over 20 years. And there were relatively few for the most recent years. I take it that that's a reflection that for the uncollected items for the most recent years, there's quite a few that Rossi Law and the city are continuing to try to collect, right?
Yes. Prior to me taking the position as tax collector, I'm not entirely sure of their policies or how they used a collection agency, or if they came in front of you at all to ask for cancellation of these taxes. However, I have been very diligent in keeping up with the bid for collection agency and sending them the file. The sooner we send them the file, the more likely we are to collect the outstanding receivables. So I think that's why you're seeing such a span there.
Oh, that's good too, of course. Then, yeah, I suppose that my next question on this is that, pardon me one moment. Rossi Law, they have an incentive, of course, to try to collect. So, generally speaking, unless they are truly deeming it, okay, this really can't be collected, they wouldn't have an incentive to just.
Not do that at all, no. They receive a percentage of the interest on the outstanding bill as part of their contract.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. So, yeah, again, I'm just wanted to get this as a matter of the record as to why there's this big list of cancellations, and yeah, look through it all. All looks straightforward to me, and shockingly, even going through all of those, I did not have any conflicts, so I'm allowed to vote on it. So, I suppose that's all my comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Any further comments, questions from members of the council? Comments, questions from members of the public? Comments, questions from members of the public? May I have a motion?
Move favorable action.
Second.
I have a motion. I have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. The time is now 5:29 and the Warwick Finance Committee is closed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The next committee will be the Ordinance Committee, and that will start at 6 p.m.
We could have run out and got a sandwich if someone was on time.
The Ordinance Committee can now start. No.
Ordinance Committee will convene at 6:02 PM. First thing on the docket is acceptance of minutes from the committee meeting held on September 6, 2023. Do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next, we have PCO 19-23, an ordinance prohibiting the delivery of tobacco products to persons under 21 years of age. This is myself, Councilman Travis, and Councilman Lattiser. This is second passage. Does anyone have any questions or comments on the ordinance? We still in the committee? Anyone on the council have any questions or comments? Anyone on the public have any questions or comments? Seeing none, do we have a motion?
Move favorable action, second passage.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next is PCO 22-23, an ordinance to prohibit parking on the southerly side of Staples Avenue from the intersection of Midgley Avenue to 70 Staples Avenue. This is Council President McAllister. It would be first passage.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a traffic study for this. It's a very small area by the water, and it is affecting the neighborhoods. There is a new bird watching area, so it's now famous for the bird watchers, and there was difficulty getting a ambulance through the section when cars were parked on both sides. So I have a positive traffic study, and I ask my colleagues for support. Thank you.
Does anyone on the committee have any questions or comments? Does any member of the council have any questions or comments? Does any member of the public have any questions or comments? Seeing none, do we have a motion?
Move favorable action, first passage.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That concludes ordinance committee at 6:04 PM.
The next committee to meet is Public Safety, and that can take place at 6:10.
Good evening. I don't have a gavel tonight, but the Public Safety Committee meeting is coming to order at 6:10. The first item is the acceptance of the minutes from September 18th. Do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, PCR 10623, consent calendar claims. We have us from CMR Verizon in the amount of $1,644.48. City snowplow backed into the utility pole causing damage. The first item that caught my attention was the date. I had our liaison, Joanne, reach out to Terry in the water department. He said that did happen. They were fully at fault, and it has taken Verizon 2 years to replace the pole. They have replaced it and submitted the bid. I had that sent to all members via email. Any other questions or comments from the committee? Questions or comments from the council? Questions or comments from the public? Hearing none, do we have a motion? A motion?
Move to approve in the amount of $1,644.48 per the director's recommendation.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Say what? Yeah. I can't hear what he's saying. Yeah, okay, I'm doing that now. The acceptance of minutes from September 9th is the next item. Oh, I see what I did. Back order.
Move to approve minutes of September 9th from the, consent calendar claims docket.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. The next item is PCR 92-23, Julitza Reyes claim. Just the background quickly, we heard this claim. We requested an affidavit attesting to the ownership of the phone. We have received that document. So are there any other questions from the committee at this time? Councilman Ricks.
Some of my questions still remain. It is confusing to me why we have an affidavit signed that states that there is no insurance, that they have not made any claim from any third-party payer, including any insurance, and yet they submit to us bills that show that they were paying for insurance for this phone. They're asking us to pay for the insurance policy. So something here isn't adding up to me. Either the affidavit is false or the person is looking to the city as a first payer when the city should be the last in line payer. Even if it is a claim that is valid against the city, it should always be the city as the last resort, not the city as the first resort when they have insurance on that very device. Plus, it doesn't make sense for us to be paying the premiums on an insurance policy if we're not going to be using that insurance policy. I do have some other questions on this. I don't want to belabor the point because I raised some of these issues at an earlier city council meeting about a month ago. But I suppose to quickly mention one of them, there's the question of the value of the phone. This is something that's difficult to get a precise value on, but I would suggest that the value wouldn't be the full retail price as if it were brand new, considering that it was used for, I would have to double check my notes, but it was used for well over a year. I understand that Apple devices retain their value relatively well, but it doesn't make sense for us to pay full retail as well as paying for the insurance policy. So for those reasons, I would want the claimant to either appear or provide us an explanation in a little bit more detail why they did not seek reimbursement through the insurance policy, that the documents they presented show that they have an insurance plan.
Thank you. Any other comments from the committee? Any comments from the council? Any comments from the public? I am going to make a motion in in favor of paying the claim, knowing that this will come to the full floor and we'll have a separate vote on it. And the amount is of $1,100. Do I have a second on my motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Thank you. The next item is PCR 102-23, a resolution in regards to erecting a stop sign at Williston Road where it intersects with Community Road. Councilman McElroy.
I move favorable action.
And I believe you have a traffic study, sir?
I do.
Thank you. Any other comments from the committee? Comments from the council? Comments from the public? Comments from the public? Do we have a motion?
I move favorable action.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The committee adjourns at 6:16.
The next meeting, committee is intergovernmental, and that can take place at 6:20.
Thank you, Jeremy. Well-oiled machine.
It is now 6:20 and the Intergovernmental Committee is now in session. The first order of business is the acceptance of minutes from the committee meeting held on July 17th, 2023. Do I have a motion?
Favorable action.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The first item on the agenda is PCR 126-22, a resolution requesting the General Assembly to enact legislation exempting from taxation the real property and the tangible personal property of the Center for Mediation and Collaboration, Rhode Island. Councilman Sinapi?
Hello all. So the resolution somewhat speaks for itself, and a member of the center is here who can speak on the resolution's behalf as well, and Neil is here to be able to speak on it from the city's perspective so that we get all the facts. So I'll let them all say what they're going to say, and then I'll reserve my comment till the end.
Hi, Council President, members of the council. Thank you, Councilman Sinapi, for sponsoring this resolution. I'm Laura Bottaro. I'm president of the board of directors of the Center for Mediation. I also have a private mediation and arbitration practice separate from the center, and I'm here in support of the resolution. And I want to just tell you a little bit about the organization to give you a better sense of the impact that we have on the community, and in particular in Warwick. And I'm also happy to answer questions. I gave Councilman Sinapi copies, which I think you have in front of you, of our fiscal year 23 impact statement outlining some of our accomplishments in the Rhode Island community. The Center for Mediation is Rhode Island's only community mediation center, and we've been in business as an operating nonprofit for over 25 years. We just recently celebrated our 25th anniversary. We've been operating since 1996. Our mission is to train organizations, people, and businesses in conflict resolution skills, and also to offer mediation services to Rhode Island residents. Specifically to Warwick, we offer free and reduced cost mediation services to Warwick residents, and it could be on a myriad of disputes. It could be something that's actually in the courts. It could be a pre-litigation dispute that's arisen, and members of the public can just call our office, and we offer trained mediators and space at our office at 641 Bald Hill Road in Warwick, and we conduct the mediation services there. We've been at 641 Bald Hill Road now for about 2 years. We have a 10-year lease. This is the Rhode Island Truckers Association building, and so you can see we're committed to staying in Warwick. Prior to that, we were located in the Harris Fur building for about 2 years. A couple more highlights of the work that we do in Warwick. As I mentioned, we help parties resolve disputes in the court system. We are at Kent County Court 1 to 2 times a week with trained mediators helping for free pro se litigants before their cases are heard by judges at trial. And we have, I think this impact statement states, a 72% rate of agreement. So we offer this service right before a case is teed up for trial. And then in many cases, these cases settle and the parties are able to go away without a judge ruling. We also offer out-of-court options for parties who can't make it into court because of childcare or work issues. And again, these are for our trained mediators. We have partnered with Mentor Rhode Island, which is a Warwick-based organization to fund trainers going into the Rhode Island Training School in Providence. If you're familiar with that, that's the correctional institute for our youth. And this has been a really successful program that was piloted 2 summers ago, and it has blossomed into a full year program where our trainers go in and actually teach the youth what their conflict resolution style is, other types of conflict resolution styles, and new strategies for resolving conflict. We've also provided conflict resolution training for caseworkers at West Bay Community Action Program, which is in Warwick, and that's through a grant from the Warwick Rotary. We're a member of the Central Rhode Island Chamber of Commerce. And just want to emphasize that we're a longstanding Rhode Island nonprofit interested in making a significant contribution both to the state and to the city of Warwick. And we are almost fully supported by grants. So we're here seeking tax exempt status for our location at 831 Bald Hill Road. Can I answer any questions?
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Director. So first, I do just want to make a brief statement that while I have never used the Center for Mediation myself, I've only heard positive things. I believe that I have seen you all there at Kent County Courthouse. I know that the judges very much appreciate your work. I took a quick look, of course, standard due diligence, looked it up in the Rhode Island Secretary of State website, and the database shows that you're a bona fide nonprofit, of course. So it seems to me that based on that information, it certainly seems proper for you to receive the same exact treatment as all other nonprofits when it comes to tax exempt status. I guess that my point of confusion here is that, as you were saying, the property at 831 Bald Hill Road is owned by the Rhode Island Trucking Association. It's there in the tax assessor's database, just taking a quick look at the website as Rhode Island Trucking Association Incorporated. So I'm not certain exactly how the tax exempt status would function, considering that it does not appear that your nonprofit is the owner of the particular building.
Thank you for that question. So my understanding is that we would be given, if the state legislature, if the council approved it and then the state legislature approved it, given a tax exempt status that would be applied to our portion of the leasehold at the real property that is owned by Rhode Island Trucking Association. Does that answer your question?
That makes sense. Let's see. Just taking a look at the resolution. Yes, I see at the resolution on the second page, starting at line 5, that it does refer to the portion of real property occupied and the tangible personal property of the Center for Mediation and Collaboration Rhode Island located at that address. I suppose it's not entirely necessary for us to set forth the exact percentage, but to give us a general sense about how large is the building and about what's the square footage for the Center for Mediation.
Again, thank you for the question. Chris Maxwell, who represents the Rhode Island Trucking Association, is here. If you'll allow, I'll let him answer that question.
Through the chair, certainly. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you, members of the committee. We here obviously to support this for the great work they do. Great staff, great tenants. The Center for Mediation occupies 1/4 of the building in question, 831 Bald Hill Road. The total square footage of the building is 6,400 square feet, of which they occupy 1,600 square feet. So it was our understanding when they came into this very generous long-term lease that there was a provision, even as a rented tenant, that they could receive an abatement or tax relief on their portion of the lease. So that's the 1,600 square feet. The gross taxes for the year are roughly $31,000. So that's $7,500 or so we would concede as part of their rent, which is based on the structure of the rent, is baked right into their monthly lease payment. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you. And this would be, let's see, since ultimately the tax bill goes to the Rhode Island Trucking Association Incorporated, this would be something that is memorialized in the lease between the association and the center?
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, in that situation, this is, I'll say it on the record, this is certainly something that I think is very consistent with how Warwick and Rhode Island have been and should be treating our local nonprofits. I think that that type of pro rata tax exemption is appropriate. It would, in my opinion, just be a matter of the need for the tax assessor to be able to verify all of the information, since obviously a lease isn't necessarily a public document. Thank you.
Yeah, we would certainly full disclosure and transparency on the lease and all the math that's going to go into this. Yes, sir.
Councilman Howe?
Thank you, Chairman. Good evening. I just have a quick question. I read through your flyer you handed to us, and you state in fiscal year 2024, we are looking forward to increase in training, fee-for-service mediation, and expansion into commercial mediation. The fee-for-service, could you elaborate on that? And the reason why I ask this is that if, understanding the boundaries of a nonprofit, if you're asking that the center that you work out of is foregone paying the taxes, and therefore that will be passed on to the existing residents and businesses of Warwick, who exactly would you target for fee service mediation?
So we offer mediation services based on ability to pay. So free and reduced cost would be for those with lesser ability to pay. We have been trying to beef up our marketing towards, a great example is a case sitting in Rhode Island Superior Court that's been languishing for a few years, needs to be resolved, maybe hasn't been heard for trial. That would be a case ripe for paid mediation services that we would offer. And we're trying to work with the Rhode Island Superior Court to get that program going. But even if it's not directly through the court, we want to offer those services to attorneys and litigants who have the ability to pay to help fund the program for the residents who maybe aren't and lesser ability to pay.
Okay. Thank you so much. That answered the question. Thank you, Chairman.
Any other questions from the council? Okay. Council President?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was wondering if we could have the administration, I know we have the tax assessor here, I would just like to get your thoughts on this proposal.
Good evening, Neil Dupuy, Director of Assessing. I'm not here to support or not support this resolution, just here to clarify any questions that the committee or the council has. I will correct a few things that came up. Not every nonprofit is exempt from property taxes, and that's a big thing, because there's probably hundreds of 501c3 corporations within the city that do not get a tax exemption, that do have to pay the full taxes. So there's certain things in state law that are exempt by use, and those are things like a church, a school, so that property specifically, based on its use, is tax exempt. Then we have people that can be named, their organization can be named in the statute, and that's really where this one is going, as they're asking to be supported by the council, and then it would have to be ratified by the General Assembly to be placed in the statute by name. So we have to consider that other nonprofits are going to be also doing great work for the city and the residents. But, in this particular case, I think they've laid out their case, and it's up to the council whether, they wish to go that route.
Director, I know that was one of the concerns we spoke about there, and I did think it's important to highlight that, this may be the first nonprofit, but it may not be the last nonprofit that requests this.
Correct. There's a bunch of intending organizations that do great work for our community and the residents. But as Councilman Ricks referenced, every dollar that's not paid by the property taxes, by the real estate owner, that has to get passed on to the residential homeowner. So,
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
you're welcome.
Councilman Sinapi?
Yeah, so I can only go based on the instances that I know about, and at least since I've been on, I've only run into one other situation where a nonprofit sought the exemption, and it was one that, at least in my opinion, clearly fell outside of it, where their role was to provide housing at a cost. This is very different, and it might be in part because I have personal experience with entities that work in the court system and do so for free, and I'm well aware of just how necessary they are. But at least in part, it's based on my understanding that this seems to make sense for all practical purposes. And we are not the sole arbiter on this one either. The state will weigh in via the General Assembly. And frankly, I'm not really opposed to entities that deserve it to be able to get the exemption, whether there be many or whether there only be one, whatever the number might be. And I don't doubt Neil's statement in the least that there's plenty of other organizations, but I'm not comfortable voting unfavorably on the possibility that those entities come forward. I don't think it's fair to the Center for Mediation and really to any entity that comes forward just on speculative grounds to say no. If it becomes a problem later on, it becomes a problem later on, but I'm just not comfortable leaning against on a maybe. And so if we're all done with comment, I move favorable action. Or for a favorable recommendation, rather.
Councilman Gephardt?
Neil, is there an estimated amount that the impact of this?
Chris, I don't know what the total tax bill is for the building.
Total is just over 31,000, so their portion annually is about 7,500.
Yeah, and then whatever the tangible personal property is, I don't know the exact figures on that, but it's not a huge amount of money. So I wouldn't, really base it on that necessarily.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the council? Questions or comments from the public? Okay, hearing none, do I hear a motion?
I move for a favorable recommendation.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
It is now 6:39 and the Intergovernmental Committee is adjourned.
Next committee is Public Properties, and that can start at 6:40.
It keeps shutting off after.
He gets out of our way. You ready? Oh, yeah.
The City Council Committee on Public Properties, Land Use, and Community Affairs comes to order at 6:42 p.m. We have first up the acceptance of minutes from the committee meeting held on July 17, 2023. Do we have a motion?
Favorable action.
Second.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, it's working now. So I'll repeat all that.
No, you good. Talk down.
The City Council Committee on Public Properties, Land Use, and Community Affairs comes to order at 6:42 p.m. First up, we have acceptance of minutes from the committee meeting held on July 17, 2023. Do we have a motion?
So move. Favorable action.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
One item on the agenda this evening. Item 1, PCR 103-23, a resolution to sell tax title of real property, Mauney Avenue, Plat 332, Lot 509. This is Councilman McElroy. Let's see. So Councilman McElroy was
Asking for favorable action for my colleague.
Thank you.
Yes.
So yeah, we'll proceed with any comments and questions. First up, well, I'll go over some of the background on this since the administration, representative from the administration working on this in particular was unable to attend this evening. However, we had the planning director is here, and Lydia Cruz Abreu answered a number of my questions earlier. I'll defer to the planning director if you have any statement.
I don't have much to say. I'm Tom Kravitz, City Planning Director. I am familiar with the file. I've looked through it. You probably know the history better than myself. Frankly, it goes back quite a ways. But the long and short of it is they have two agreements. One's an amendment. There's a couple minor typos that I noticed in it that I'm sure will get fixed as part of the process. But at the end of the day, they're just going to rectify a property that was inadvertently sold when it shouldn't have been because it was merged. So they're looking to perfect the title and pay all the taxes and fees. The amendment, the addendum to the agreement says that the applicant will foreclose the right of redemption through court themselves. So if that's the process, that would happen first. Then they can pay their fees with the city, and then they would record the administrative subdivision, which you've seen. So with that, I'll just answer any questions if you have any.
Thank you. And let's see. Yeah, it was my understanding that it was the intent at the time of the tax sale of lots 509 and 510 that both lots be sold together because they were supposed to have been joined. However, lot 510 was sold while lot 509 was not properly included with that. And so the person who holds tax title as to lot 510 does not hold the tax title as to lot 509. From reviewing the map, it looks like a classic situation of a double lot, so to speak, of the house is on lot 510, and then you essentially have a large side yard of lot 509. However, both of these are effectively, under the modern zoning ordinance, undersized lots, which is causing some trepidation for the holder of the tax title, in that if you were to perfect title and the like, demolish the existing house, which I understand is in just deplorable condition. I imagine that Councilman McElroy has been getting quite a few phone calls from the neighborhood on a property like that, just as any of us on the council would tend to get questions from neighbors on that sort of thing. So it's a matter of straightening this up so that the process as intended can move forward. The person who bought the tax title at the tax sale those years ago would then have the ability to proceed with what they need to do, both the legal process and the physical process of tearing down the house, with certainty that they have the legal right to be able to construct a new house on that property. And this is also one of these situations where, as much as it would be nice for the city to be able to go out to bid, maximize the money we're pulling in on this type of property, that's not how the legal process works here, because the city's ability to collect any revenue here really is limited to the amount of those past due taxes, with any applicable fees per the statute and any costs per the statute that enable us to sell a property at tax sale. And so this is certainly not something where we can put out anything to bid. No, it's the person who bought that tax title who is the sole person who's really able to proceed in a situation like this. Although it is my understanding that the planning department did properly issue notice per the various legal requirements. I think that generally covers some of the different bases here. Any questions at this time from members of the committee? I'll also just turn it over if there's any further comment from Councilman McElroy or from the planning director.
But yeah, the one thing I did notice is on the purchase and sales agreement where I said there was an editorial correction, it referenced section 213. It's ordinance 2-14. And the addendum referenced executed by the buyer. It says the entered into a contract executed by the buyer August 27th, 2018. But the agreement is actually, it was signed by the buyer on November 15th, 2016. So I just want to make sure we have the right one. But that's a minor thing. You could still approve this. I just want to let you know that I'm aware of that, and we'll make sure it's correct and consistent.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you. And I think, yeah, I was noticing some of those items as well. I think that the city council solicitor caught a minor inconsistency of $50 versus $80 on one of the items. So just to double check with the city council solicitor, you have all of those items and would have an omnibus amendment ready to present after the comments?
I certainly have the technical dollar amount amendment ready to go. As it relates to the amendment itself, or the attachment there to the exhibit, that's something that's in control of the administration, so they can make sure that they perfect those items in an updated purchase and sale agreement when they actually do the transaction.
Okay. Still, we just want to make sure that all of the references in the resolution are accurate. I don't know if it would be more expedient for you and the director to discuss while we wrap up the comment, or if we should take just a 5-minute recess?
We can certainly converse, and ultimately, there's a recommendation that's being made here. The full council would be in charge of making any formal amendment, so we can withhold that to the full council's discretion later, and I can confer with the director.
That makes sense. Yeah, for those minor technical amendments, we can certainly wait for the full council meeting. Okay, we've had comment by members of the committee. Any comment, members of the council? Comment, members of the public? Questions, comments, members of the public? Hearing none, do we have a motion?
Move favorable action.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. And that concludes the City Council Committee on Public Properties, Land Use, and Community Affairs at 6:51 PM.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Next up will be the full city council meeting, and that will start at 7 PM. So we will see you back at 7 o'clock.
Beginning of that meeting, he was looking for you to introduce. I figured it.
Yeah.
Good evening, everyone. I call the October 2nd, 2023 City Council meeting to order. The clerk will call the roll. Here.
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 Thank you. At this time, I'd like to ask our Sergeant of Arms, Paul Wells, to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose bright stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bomb bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Thank you very much, Sergeant. We are now on general communications. This is the announcement of congratulations, condolences, or community events. I have a couple. First up, we're on the final phases of the playground here in Apponaug. The mayor and I were talking with the planners for this, and we're hoping Wednesday or Thursday they will finally be able to open up. We still need to put some signage out there and lines on the basketball court, but we were almost there, and that'll be a great time. So I'll keep everyone posted on when that playground is officially open. And also want to invite everyone to Winterfest, which will be on December 9th. From 9 to 3, we're going to have a holiday parade at 10 a.m. here in Apponaug. So there's going to be food trucks, live music, face painting, horse-drawn carriage rides. It's going to be a very exciting event. So that's going to take place on December 9th here in Apponaug. Are there any other members of the council that have anything under general communications? Okay. Hearing none, we'll move to the executive communications. There are none. A is the acceptance of the minutes from the council meeting held on September 18th, 2023. Councilman Howe.
Move favorable action.
Second by Councilman Foley. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you. Number one is the announcement of appointments. There are none. Number two is appointments requiring confirmation. There are none. Number three is the consent calendar, PCR 105-23, a resolution relative to bids. Committee report, finance.
Favorable action.
For action, Councilman Howe.
Move favorable action.
Second by Councilman Foley. Go ahead, Councilman Howe.
Thank you, Mr. President. PCR 105-23, bid 2024-222, bid 2024-179, 2024-176, 2024-175, 2024-187, and 2024-187. That concludes the bid package, Mr. President.
Great. Any questions or comments that were not asked earlier this evening in the Finance Committee? Okay, hearing none, we'll move to number 2 is PCR 106-23, resolution relative to claims, committee report, public safety.
Recommend favorable action.
For action, Councilman Foley.
Move favorable action. One claim in the amount of $1,644.48 for Verizon.
And second by Councilman McElroy, Councilman Ricks, and Councilman Howe. Any questions or comments on PCR 106-23 that were not asked earlier this evening in committee? Okay, hearing none, both have been moved and seconded, so the clerk will call a roll for favorable action on the consent calendar. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. I believe one item has been removed from the consent calendar. Committee report, finance.
Thank you, Mr. President. Bid 2024-210 UCMR 5 testing is now PCR 108-23. Recommendation of committee was favorable action.
Favorable action with an amendment.
Yes, Mr. President.
Okay, if we could say the amendment, we'll get a second, and then we'll discuss.
Yes, Mr. President. Move favorable action on PCR 108-23. As to increase the item, the overall from $10,000, increase it by $2,000 to $12,000 as amended.
Okay, second by Councilman Foley. Any questions or comments that were not asked earlier this evening in the Finance Committee? Hearing none, the clerk will call a roll for favorable action on the amendment, raising it from $10,000 to $12,000. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. And Councilman, how would you like to
Move as
that?
amended, PCR 108-23.
Okay, and second by Councilman Foley. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, the clerk will call a roll for favorable action as amended. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Next up is unfinished business. Number 1 is PCO 19-23. This is for second passage, committee report, ordinance. For action, Councilman Sinapi. Second by Councilwoman Travis, Councilman McElroy. Any questions or comments that were not asked earlier this evening in the ordinance committee? Hearing none, the clerk will call a roll for favorable action for second passage. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Second passage. Number 2 is PCR 92-23, committee report, public safety.
The committee recommends favorable action.
For action, Councilman Foley.
Move favorable action. I would just like to state that when this first came to us, it was recommended to be paid by the police department, the colonel. The only question we had was who owned the phone. We asked for an affidavit. We received the affidavit. Therefore, as the chair, I made the motion for favorable action, siding with the chief.
Okay, and do we have a second to his? We have a second from Councilman McElroy. Any questions or comments? Councilman Ricks.
Yes. So as I raised in committee, there are questions here as to the affidavit. So there are one of two possibilities here. Either the person did not use the insurance plan that they were paying for during the period in question, and which they are asking us, the taxpayers of the city of Warwick, to pay for an insurance plan to cover damage or loss of this phone, or the affidavit was signed falsely. So it makes no sense to me that a person would pay for an insurance plan and not use that insurance plan when the phone is lost. It also doesn't make sense to me that we would go ahead and pay full price for a phone that has aged and had been used for well over a year and obviously had diminished value as a result of being used for over a year, and also not take advantage of that insurance plan that we are being asked to pay for. So I think that there are questions here that need to be resolved. I'll also say that Obviously, justice is blind. I think that the city council should look at this claim the same as any other claim. And with that said, credibility is always relevant. One can take a look at how the underlying situation was resolved. It's a matter of public record. So I am not comfortable paying out full price as if a phone was brand new when it wasn't brand new. I'm also not comfortable paying out, treating Warwick as the first in line to be paying on this when it appears from the documents that were submitted as part of the packet on this claim that there was an insurance policy in place that appears to cover exactly this. So for those reasons, I would intend to vote no if this matter is heard at this time. Otherwise, I would certainly be amenable to continuing this for whatever period of time is necessary to gain that additional information and look into whether an insurance claim has actually been filed or not, and encourage the claimant to file that insurance claim so that the claimant may be made whole. And then if the claimant is not made whole by that insurance policy, then of course Warwick should be covering the appropriate difference. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Sinapi.
So I'm just looking at this like it's any other kind of claim. In the affidavit, they said they're not going to seek compensation elsewise. And just like with other claims, we hold that that's enough. And even in those other claims, when they almost always already have insurance because they're required by law for their vehicle, we treat it as long as they say on the affidavit that they're not going to seek the compensation elsewise, that's enough. And even with the phone plans nowadays, they often do have a deductible, just like with the car insurance. So I wouldn't really blame the person if they chose not to utilize it despite paying for it. So again, just like with the car claims, you got to take them for their word. Well, I suppose you don't have to, but I'm going to. So I'm ready to vote favorable action.
If I may.
Hold on, I believe Councilman Howe, did you want to speak?
I did, and actually I have to, I think with the unique situation, I completely agree with Councilman Sinapi. However, with the unique situation of how this all arose, I would tend to lean towards what Councilman Ricks is saying. And to the committee, I do apologize. I was discussing other issues on the Finance Committee and I missed the dialogue, but I would have to agree with what Councilman Ricks is saying due to the situation, the unique situation of this case. Thank you.
Thank you. I would further add that it appears to me that one could have bought this phone at face value, MSRP, manufacturer's suggested retail price, at the time that the phone was released, I believe, for less than what the claimant is seeking for here. What the claimant is seeking for here is a calculation based on also having that phone plan and having that insurance policy packaged all together. So it really would be a situation where we are paying for an insurance policy that the claimant is not choosing to utilize. I would also distinguish this from a situation with automobiles, because with a vehicle, an auto policy deductible, we'll often see deductibles of $500, $1,000, relatively high, especially compared to, say, typical pothole damage claims or the like, where we are capped at $300. So naturally, I would agree with Councilman Sinapi on all of those cases that, okay, it doesn't make sense for us to require the claimant to put that claim in with the auto insurance company because, yeah, their deductible is going to be higher, and that's going to do them no good, do us no good. But here, this is specifically an insurance policy for a phone, circumstances of a lost phone, and if there is a deductible, then For starters, we don't know what that deductible is because we haven't been presented with that information. But if there is a deductible, I would not be opposed to us paying for that deductible. I would also be happy to entertain a theory as to, okay, maybe the claimant isn't being made whole with the deductible alone. I'm not saying that I'm opposed to paying out a higher amount than just the amount of the deductible on this, but we really should know, what is the deductible? Did the claimant go ahead and put the claim in with the for the phone? And for that matter, just because someone signs an affidavit that they did not, in a situation where it simply does not make sense, why wouldn't someone go ahead and use that insurance policy specifically for that phone? Then I have a serious concern, especially given the underlying circumstances of the matter, that someone may be double dipping here. I don't want the city of Warwick to be paying somebody to get a windfall of more than the device is actually worth, especially if there is that possibility that the person, in fact, received the reimbursement under their insurance policy. That's all. Thank you.
Any questions or comments from any individuals who haven't had a chance to speak yet? Councilman Howe.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President and the solicitor, if you don't mind, to go with what Councilman Rick said, and again, I want to preface this by saying I do apologize to the committee because the committee did their work, they did their research, but I think that what the councilman has brought up is valid. How would we go about if it was within this body that there would be at this point to hold to get the information that Councilman Ricks asked for?
Well, we currently have a motion of favorable action before us, so either we continue on that path or a superior motion would need to be made or withdrawal of that would need to be done in order to procedurally follow accordingly.
Thank you, solicitor. What do you think? Is that what you'd like to do?
I would mention that I believe this is the third time this has been held, though, so the committee has taken this up a couple of times, so just.
Mr. President, may I? Thank you. I wholeheartedly agree, and the committee did their work, but I think, and as I said, and this is a situation near and dear to me, this is something where I truly have to, I see no issue in what the councilman said of verifying that the insurance, if there is a plan on the phone's age, and I understand the responsibility, because I made my own phone call on this situation. But I think that with the uniqueness of the insurance that is purchased on the phones and the uniqueness of the situation, I would not have opposition of just continuing it to get the information so that we can have everything covered. So I understand. I wholeheartedly agree with you, Mr. President. I think that I think I would feel much better, as well as representing my law-abiding constituents and the taxpayers of the city, by following through on this.
Do you have a motion?
Would I make a motion? Okay, because there is currently a motion.
There is a motion of favorable action that's been moved and seconded before us. Pursuant to the rules, a motion to postpone to a certain time would be a superior motion. So if you wanted to hold it to the next meeting, for example, that would be something that could be offered, but you need a second and then proceed from there.
Mr. President, I would like to make that motion, but I see my colleague's hands up, so I'll hold off on that motion if you don't mind, sir. And
Sure.
to recognize
I would
my
like
colleague.
to give Chairman Foley an opportunity. Chairman Foley.
All right. I have a number of issues here again. 3 years as chairman of the Claims Committee, Public Safety Committee, which handles claims. The first is, this is like you said, third time we've held it. The first time, the question we had was who owned the phone. We reached out to the claimant and asked for an affidavit. We finally got that. Now we have new questions. My first thing is if this was DPW or Water Department who had another claim in front of us earlier, I might see the reason. This is the police department. What we're alleging is that the claimant might be engaging in fraud. Well, who would investigate that? Our police department, who has already made a recommendation on this claim. That's one issue. Second issue, we hold it. Who reaches out to the claimant for this extra information? Who investigates this further? It's not the committee's job. I know it gets thrown back at our clerk, who has other duties for herself. Do we throw it back to the police department and ask them to reinvestigate a claim that they already investigated? Those are my concerns. As the chair of the Public Safety Committee, having heard this claim for a second time, holding it would be for the third time. I will not support a vote to hold.
Any other questions? All right, Councilman, you spoke 3 times on this, so if you're going to make a motion, this is the time. If not, we have a motion before us.
Of course, I'll be very brief. So I did raise these same concerns at the time of the initial hearing. I don't know exactly why they weren't resolved between then and now, but these are not new concerns. I would also point out that as to the underlying matter, it appears that that was resolved, and it is a matter of public record. Anyone can look it up. It was resolved 7 days ago. So I think that, especially given the period of time between when this claim was submitted and the police department submitted their recommendation, I think it is completely appropriate if, say, the police department took a second look at this, called up the insurance company, saw whether or not there was a claim submitted. Because at the time that the police department was making the recommendation, they may not have had that information, and now would be the appropriate time for the police department to make that phone call. Thank you.
Okay, at this time, it's been moved in second, unless there's anyone that's looking to make an additional. Councilman Howe.
Thank you, Mr. President. Without getting into the detail, I make a motion that we hold till the next meeting with the expectation that the claimant or somehow it come forward and clarifies what Councilman Ricks requested, which is insurance or no insurance on the item that we are voting on. Thank you, Mr. President.
Do we have a second to that? Second by Councilwoman Travis. Okay, so the motion is to hold until the next meeting. The clerk will call the roll. No.
No.
No. Yes.
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Okay, so now we're back to favorable action, which was Councilman. It's
favorable action.
Second by Councilman McElroy. Any additional questions or comments? Councilman Ricks, last word on this.
Move to amend to the amount of $200.
Second.
We have a motion. Hold on one second. The clerk has brought up a concern.
This is a different amendment. It is in order at this time. So if the amendment is to reduce the award from 1,100 to be 200, moved by Councilman Ricks, is there
a second? I heard a second. Second by Councilman Gephardt. So now on the floor, what we're discussing at this time is to approve at a new amount of $200. Okay, Councilman Howe.
I was second.
Oh, okay. Second by Councilman Howe as well. Councilman Foley.
Point of order only. I see someone in the audience. I don't know if it's appropriate. They were raising their hand. I didn't know if you saw it, just pointing it out.
I'm sorry, but that was for committee.
Okay.
They weren't here for committee.
No problem. I just wanted to make sure.
Lamont? No, I'm sorry. We can't open it up then. Okay, so at this time, we have a motion to approve for $200. It's been second. Is there any questions or comments on that? Councilman Sinapi.
Just clarity, what's the $200 based on? I might have missed it.
Oftentimes, phone deductibles are approximately $200. Here, we have a lack of information. The number of 1,100 seems completely arbitrary. The number $200 seems slightly less arbitrary. So if we are going to have a vote on this evening, then I would suggest that $200 would be a more appropriate number than $1,100, though my preference would be to continue the matter.
Sinapi.
We have a approved recommendation for 1,100 from the Deputy Chief of Police. I don't have an approved recommendation for $200, so I'm going with the Deputy Chief of Police.
I apologize, Mrs. Sinapi. I did not hear that. I didn't hear your comments. I'm sorry.
Oh, no worries. All I said was the Deputy Chief of Police stated approval of the claim for $1,100. He did not state it for $200, nor is $200 mentioned. I understand the rationale, but I'm going to go with what the Deputy Chief of Police said, which was $1,100.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay, so this is just on the amendment at this time. So the clerk will call a roll for favorable action to amend $200. Yes.
No.
Yes. Yes.
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Okay, so now before us is a motion. So Councilman Ricks, I'm going to need you to make a motion for favorable action as amended for 200. Get a second, then we can have discussion.
Move favorable action as amended.
Second.
Second by Councilman Foley. Councilman Howe, sorry. Councilman Foley, any comments, additional comments? Any additional comments on this? Okay, so this is for favorable action as amended for $200. The clerk will call the roll. No.
Excuse me, clarification. So if we vote yes, we're awarding it for the $200.
Correct.
No.
Yes.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Yes.
Is there any other motions that anyone would like to make? Councilman Foley.
We're to move for favorable action in the amount recommended by the police department.
You can make that motion at this
I'm
time.
making a motion, favorable action in the amount of $1,100.
Is there a second? Second by Councilman McElroy. Any questions or comments? Okay, hearing none, the clerk will call a roll for favorable action in the amount of $1,100. Yes.
Yes.
No. No.
Yes.
No.
No.
I believe we should probably make a motion to hold this. All right, unless we have another number. Councilman Howe, you have the floor.
Council President, I make a motion that we hold until the next meeting, and to include getting the information requested by Councilman Ricks.
I believe we've already voted on that, so it'd have to be a different meeting.
Make a motion to hold until the next meeting.
Or in 1 month.
In 1 month.
Yeah. Do we have a second to that? The second by Councilwoman Travis. Councilman Foley.
I would support that motion if in the motion we could clarify who is responsible for getting us this new information that people are asking for. That is one of those black holes that it falls into, and it falls on the city clerk, who that is not in her job description. So the claim went to the police department. So I would favor or amendment to Councilman House asking that the police department reach out and we, in our motion, clarify what information we want from that claimant.
We got to be careful here. I don't think we can dictate to administrative officials what they have to and has to do. How about this? I will reach out as the council president. Councilman Ricks will write up exactly what he's looking for. I will personally reach out to the claimants and forward any response to the chairman. So I will take responsibility. I will personally do that. You're welcome. So we have a motion to hold, what's the first meeting to November 6th. It's been second. The clerk will call a roll to hold till November 6th. Yes.
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 Thank you. Motion to hold to 11/6. We move on to new business. First up is PCO 22-23 Committee Report Ordinance. For action, Councilwoman Travis, will you move this for me, please?
I move favorable action on PCO-22-23.
Thank you. Second by Councilman Howe. Any questions or comments I would not ask earlier this evening in the Ordinance Committee? Hearing none, the clerk will call a roll for favorable action. Yes.
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 Thank you. First passage. Number 2 this evening is PCR 126-22 Committee Report Intergovernmental.
Favorable action, Mr. President.
For action, Councilman Sinapi.
Just a question for the solicitor. Do we want to address the other part, or should we just plow ahead?
Which, well, let's get them, do we have a second on the?
We don't have a second at this time, so the committee recommended favorable action. I asked you for action, and then if we can get a second. Second by Councilman Foley. Thank you. And your question, Mr. Sinapi?
So do we need to amend here, or is it up to the General Assembly?
Do you want to address the mission portion, or are you talking about the retro?
Either.
Well, the mission is your purview to update that if you want to amend that portion of the resolution.
I don't have any strong feelings one way or another, especially when the General Assembly is going to be ruling on it.
Then it's available to proceed if that's the wish of the body.
For those who don't know what we're talking about, there was a request to alter the mission statement slightly. Given that the General Assembly is going to take it up, I don't mind altering it in here, but it's up to everybody.
Any questions or comments that were not asked earlier this evening, committee? Okay, hearing none, it's been moved and second. The clerk will call a roll for favorable action. Yes.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
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 Thank you. Number 3 this evening is PCR 102-23 Committee Report Public Safety.
Recommend favorable action.
For action, Councilman McElroy.
I move favorable action.
Second by Councilman Howe, Councilman Foley. Any questions or comments that were not asked earlier this evening in committee? Hearing none, the clerk will call a roll for favorable action. Yes.
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 Thank you. Motion passes. Number 4 this evening is PCR 103-23, Committee Report, Public Properties.
Recommend favorable action with an amendment. The amendment to be read by the city council solicitor.
Okay, for action, Councilman McElroy.
I move favorable action with the amendment.
Okay, can we get a second? Second by Councilman Howe, and then Solicitor Walsh.
The amendment is page 1, line 30, deleting the word 50 and inserting in place thereof the word 80.
Okay, any questions or comments on the amendment? Okay, hearing none, the clerk will call the roll for favorable action on the amendment. Yes.
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 Thank you. For Councilman McElroy, do you have a motion as amended?
Move favorable action as amended.
Second by Councilman Foley and Councilman Howe. Any questions or comments that were not asked earlier this evening? Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll for favorable action as amended. Yes.
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 Thank you. Motion passes. Number 5 this evening is PCR 104-23, Committee Report, Finance.
Favorable action.
For action, Councilman Howe.
Move favorable action.
Second by Councilman Foley. Any questions or comments that were not asked earlier this evening in committee? Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll for favorable action. Yes.
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 Thank you. Motion passes. Referral and advertising, PCO 20-23, an ordinance amending the City of Warwick zoning ordinances, SECO partnership, Verizon Wireless, applicant assessors, plot 332, lots 396, 397, 402, 403, and 470, 176 Winter Ave off of Loring Ave. We are now moving to unanimous consent. We have one item under unanimous consent, which is PCR 107-23, a resolution authorizing a grant of easement to National Grid for the installation, maintenance, and operation of electric distribution system at Greenwood Elementary School. So the first question is there any objection to hearing this under unanimous consent at this time? Okay, hearing that there's no objections, we will now hear PCO 107-23. I docketed this. National Grid needs authority from the City Council to go in and do electrical work at Greenwood Elementary School. We're going to see more and more of this. I believe Councilwoman Travis and I had one a couple meetings ago for schools in our areas. They come up. We got to try to move quickly on these so we can get it in. That's why it's under unanimous consent. So are there any questions on that? This just authorizes them the authority to go in and do this electrical work at the elementary school. Okay. This was not in committee. Are there any questions from members of the public on PCO 107-23? Okay. Hearing none. It's been moved and seconded. Correct? Okay, can I get a motion for favorable action by Councilman Foley?
So moved.
And second by Councilman Howe and Councilwoman Travis. The clerk will call roll for favorable action. Yes.
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 Thank you. Motion passes. Councilman Foley, I believe you have one item to document
Yes.
unanimous consent.
Under unanimous consent, I ask for unanimous consent to waive Rule 27 and reconsider PCR 63-23, the claim of Leah DeLeon at the October 16th meeting of the Warwick City Council and the Public Safety Committee.
Okay, we'll take that as a motion. Is there a second to Councilman McElroy and Councilman Ricks have seconded this? Is there any objection to hearing this under unanimous consent? Hearing none, so ordered. Thank you. Ward 2, anything under unanimous consent to docket?
Pass.
Ward 3?
Pass.
Ward 4?
I have one, Mr. President. Pass.
Ward 6.
Pass.
Ward 7 passes. Ward 8. Ward 9.
Pass.
Councilwoman Travis.
If there be no further business of this honorable body, we move to a docket session.
All those in favor of moving the docket session, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? We are now in the docket session. Ward 1, anything to docket this evening?
Yes, a resolution to the Rhode Island Department of Environmental Management approving the City of Warwick submission to the 2024 Recreation Development and Acquisition Grant Program.
Intergovernmental. Ward 2, anything to docket?
Pass.
Ward 3.
Pass.
Ward 4.
One, Mr. President, a resolution relative to authorizing a telecommunications tower lease at Clegg Field.
Public properties. Ward 6.
Pass.
Ward 7, I have one, a resolution in regards to the 2024 City Council calendar. Intergovernmental. Ward 8. Ward 9. Thank you very much. We are adjourned. Have a good evening.